Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Shahrin, and today I will going to present my paper, which entitled "The Determinants of Preferred Export Logistics Gateway in Malaysia Halal Product Industry." This paper was written by me, my colleague Muhammad Hafiz Zulfaka, and Abdul Kabir Rahmat. This will be my presentation outlined. What I'm going to present today. The halal industry in Malaysia has been growing rapidly for the past 15 years. And everyone knows that JAKIM, Jabatan Kemajuan Islam Malaysia, is the certification body for Malaysia. And even JAKIM did some certification body for some of the CB in other countries, which the products is coming to Malaysia. Apart from that, in order to support the halal industry in Malaysia, the government has also formed halal development corporations, and one of the main things which HDC is responsible is to put Malaysia as a global halal hub, and a lot of activities has been planned. And since its establishment in 2006, there's a lot of things that has been done, and I think HDC is trying to put Malaysia in the map. So basically, the halal industry in Malaysia is one of the important industry, and apart from that, it is also important for the shippers or the manufacturers of halal product to find the right gateway for them to export and import their product, and this is what this paper is looking at. For the literature review, I'm focusing more on the freight forwarders aspect, because basically freight forwarders are the one who are basically planning and also facilitating the cross-border trades. So they will plan the movement of goods for the clients, and they will find the right logistics gateway. And from the carrier's point of view, basically, when we talk about freight forwarders, it's easy for the shipping lines just to deal with freight forwarders, so that they can consolidate the customers and deal with the shipping lines, rather than the shipping lines needs to deal with a lot of manufacturers, which will become a problem to them. And in the halal situation, what the freight forwarders needs to think of is basically to ensure that the process of moving the goods, to plan to move the goods, they have to take into consideration of segregating the halal product, because in terms of halal logistics implementation, it needs to be segregated and separated from non-halal products and substance for entire supply chain. So then only where the halal supply chain can be determined in that particular aspect. For the methodology of this particular study, we did a qualitative approach, because we are looking at to get in-depth result of the studies, and we did the interview with a few relevant respondents. And the respondents that we have chosen are, there are 2 respondents from port operators, 1 respondent from shipping lines, 1 respondent from halal product manufacturers, and 3 respondents from freight forwarders. So we are getting the information from the different perspective of different parties in the whole supply chain of halal movement. And the findings of the study has shown 3 important category that we should discuss. The first one is in terms of service performance. In order for the halal product manufacturers to choose, they need to ensure that the ports or the logistic gateway that they choose can provide them with a high level of service performance. It has always been the case, which saying that Singapore is a better ports operators in the region or even in the world, and that might be true. And there are certain things which Singapore is good at in terms of the productivity and flexibility in the port operations. And one of the things which Singapore is good at is actually by having a lot of sales frequencies. However, in this particular study also, it has shown that Malaysian port itself, there are certain ports which actually at par with Singapore as a logistic gateway. And they have put out the two important ports in Malaysia, which is Port Klang and also Tanjung Pelepas. And there are also statements saying that some of the top shipping lines has already served our ports, which they are moving from Singapore and works to Malaysia as their hub for certain routes. So this to show that as a gateway, um, the halal product that Malaysia is trying to export, they are keen of doing the service in a Malaysian port because they are looking at in terms of the integrity within much better, and they understood better in terms of halal product movement rather than going to other gateway. Uh, the second factors in terms of choosing the right logistics gateway for the halal product is basically the cost. And even though cost, yes, it is something which they have to look at. And by comparing between Singapore and Malaysia, there are certain times which at certain times Malaysia might be better rates for the customers. But however, it depends on the manufacturers where they would like to send their particular products and where they basically wanted to basically deliver the products by using which gateway. And for halal manufacturers, for them, uh, yes, cost is important, but it's not a priority for them if they wanted to have an halal integrity in terms of the supply chain. And apart from what they have looked at, um, even though the logistics cost is important, but some of the other factors also needs to be looked at, and it will depends on how does the freight forwarders assist them in order to send their goods. So some of the respondent thinks that this will be one of the ways to determine not only by looking at the cost, but also some other factors that might help to develop a certain aspect that we need to look at. So it depends on how the freight forwarders giving input to the manufacturers on which logistics gateway that they wanted to use. And by looking at the advice being given, so it basically to identify the gateway that they can choose and how does the overall operations of the halal supply chain that they are looking at, and the manufacturers will understand that it will not provide them with halal integrity issues when they exporting their products. The third factor, which findings that we managed to find in terms of choosing the right gateway, is basically the infrastructure development. And this infrastructure development is basically to look at on how does each port in the region in order for them to become the logistics gateway. And for Malaysian aspect, basically, um, it will look at in terms of how the ports operators can improve the infrastructure. Basically in Port Klang, they have development has been done, and I think from the respondents' statement, they are saying that yes, the Malaysian ports, Port Klang, Tanjung Pelepas, has also tried to work to compete with Singapore ports in order for them to become more competitive. So a lot of infrastructure has been developed for the past 5 years in Port Klang and also Tanjung Pelepas, and they are creating a competition with Singapore and by promoting the new infrastructure development. And but in Port Klang, for example, they are looking at in terms of the last mile deliveries, which we provide them with a lot of problems to have an efficient delivery to the ports. So in Singapore, basically they have developed a new port area in Tuas, and this will I think will enhance the numbers of TEUs that Singapore port is handling. So basically, we are looking at in terms of how ports can compete by developing their infrastructure development in order to put themselves as a logistics gateway. So in other words, if you are comparing between Singapore and Malaysia ports, yes, Singapore is still we can number one or number two in the world in terms of container ports. Port Klang maybe number 12, 11, and Tanjung Lepas number 17 in the world. But we are looking at in terms of competing, developing the infrastructure into compete with that particular aspect. And I think the both Malaysian ports that is competing directly with Singapore is trying to ensure that their development is basically can help them to attract more mainline vessels to call to the port, and this will give a lot of choices to the halal manufacturers in Malaysia itself, and they can choose either to send the cargo rather to through Malaysian ports rather to go to Singapore ports. But it also depends on how the infrastructure can help to attract better services overall to the customers. So as a conclusion, we know that Singapore ports is basically one of the ports in the world, and a lot of development that they have done in the new area into us, and it helps. As for manufacturers, the sentiment of sending cargo through their own ports might not be as strong as looking at the cost aspect and also the services aspect. So the Malaysian ports, I think, will have to work much more aggressively in order to ensure that at least Malaysian manufacturers do send their cargo through Malaysian ports and do not go to Singapore. And I think a lot of things that maybe the government can support in order to ensure that there is no cross border to Singapore just to export to another country, that we can use our own excellent port that we have in Malaysia, Port Kelang and also Tanjung Lepas Port. So hopefully it can helps the development of Malaysian ports and also the logistics environment in Malaysia. So with that, I thank you. And you have any questions, I have my email at the end of the slides. And with that, I would like to thank the organizers for accepting my papers. And thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.